Usually it's hard to find wide receivers with real upside off the waiver wire, but I don't think this is one of those weeks. This week, I have a lot of guys I want to go through and talk about. And also at the end of the video, I'm going to be talking about some wide receivers that we may be able to just cut off our roster, even though we liked them at the beginning of the year. But of course, before we get into it, go down there, drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. We just hit 120,000 subscribers, so thank you so much for everything. We are going to be live streaming every single night, so if you want to come out to a stream to get your question answered, just hit the bell next to the subscribe button, or feel free to leave any questions you have down there in the comment section. I'm going to be answering as many of those as I can. Last but not least, this video is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Only for people who use promo code FLOCK on Underdog are you going to get this special line for Cooper Kupp Week 4 Monday night, half a receiving yard. Not only are you going to get access to that, but you are also going to get a 100% deposit match up to $100 with promo code FLOCK. So please make sure you take advantage of that ASAP. But that should be it. Let's go through. Let's dive into this video. Starting off with Mr. Zay Jones. You know we had to bring him up. We talked about him in our top 10 lessons learned video. So I guess now the Jacksonville Jaguars is an offense that we want to be a part of. I guess we can be excited about the Jacksonville Jaguars with no Urban Meyer here. And Zay Jones this past week, he had 11 targets now. Please don't think I'm saying that all of a sudden Zay Jones is the wide receiver one in Jacksonville. Nope. I don't think Zay Jones is ever really going to be a consistent option over Christian Kirk. You still easily prefer Christian Kirk, but we are about to be getting to the portion of the season where we have to be thinking somewhat about our depth. And I think that Zay Jones is going to be a player that during that bye week stretch, you will be able to occasionally spot start him. Because if we look at what you have with the Jacksonville Jaguars exclusively running 11 personnel, they pretty much only get 3 wide receivers on the field. If we look at the snap data from this past week, you're going to be seeing that you have Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, Marvin Jones as the only real wide receivers that are seeing the football field. This gets backed up with the overall target volume with 11 targets to Zay Jones, 9 to Christian Kirk, and 7 to Marvin Jones Jr. as well. And if we're going to be looking at Zay Jones, I mean, you can get excited about the 10 receptions, 85 receiving yards, and the receiving touchdown. I don't know, maybe I'm a little bit too overly optimistic with Jacksonville, but if we remember, I mean, Trevor Lawrence was sold to be the next great NFL quarterback. I was hesitant after his rookie season, but I guess the people who are blaming everything on Urban Meyer, y'all were correct. And now let's go down to our next receiver, Isaiah McKenzie. I was surprised to see that Isaiah McKenzie's rostered in less than 50% of Yahoo leagues right now. This is a wide receiver that was in a very good situation this week. You had 57 pass attempts here. And on top of this, obviously, we had Stephon Diggs in and out of the game. Like Stephon Diggs, every other play, it seemed like he was going down with cramps. So Isaiah McKenzie was set up in a perfect spot, if we're going to be completely honest. And with that perfect spot, he gave you the production you were looking for. He had 9 targets. He had 7 receptions, 76 receiving yards, and a receiving touchdown. The main thing that I like with Isaiah McKenzie here is we don't need to be worried about Jamison Crowder anymore. It appears that you just have Isaiah McKenzie taking over as this a full-time slot wide receiver. Week 1, I was a little bit hesitant to buy into it because you had Jamison Crowder out there half the time. You had Isaiah McKenzie out there half the time. You still have a lot of wide receivers getting involved in Buffalo. But I mean, I think if we were looking at Isaiah McKenzie as someone that's playing an insane amount of snaps for the Buffalo Bills, when we have Josh Allen at quarterback, it's probably a good spot to be betting in on it. Now, our next receiver, how the hell is Tyler Boyd only rostered in 51% of leagues right now? With Tyler Boyd, I mean, not as strong of an underlying day as you would see. He had 5 targets, but with those 5 targets, 4 receptions, 105 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. That was almost 2 receiving touchdowns. Here, I think that with Tyler Boyd, I don't even want to tell you to go pick him up because this one massive spike week. In reality, I was just sitting there going, oh, I wonder how many leagues he's rostered in, because in my opinion, he should be a guy that's rostered. He should be someone that's rostered in every single fantasy football league, because even if you never love the projection coming into the week, we know just based off the upside for the Cincinnati Bengals offense, Tyler Boyd from a week-to-week standpoint would have this type of ceiling where he could randomly pop off for 20 points if you're desperate and need to put him in your starting lineup. And also, if we were to see an injury to either T. Higgins or Jamar Chase, and we assume that the Cincinnati Bengals Bengals going forward are an above average offense in the NFL. And this is going to be a very similar situation to an even further extreme to what you have with the Jacksonville Jaguars, where the Cincinnati Bengals, please, let's see the snaps here, legitimately only use 3 wide receivers. They have no wide receiver depth at all, where if Joe Burrow or T. Higgins were to go down, I think Tyler Boyd is an immediate top 24 receiver. Extremely surprised to see he's only rostered in about half of Yahoo leagues right now. And now let's go over to Matt Collins. I want to be bringing his name up, and I want to be saying, do not pick him up. Okay, let's get this out here. I have to talk about him because the man had 10 targets, 8 receptions, 158 receiving yards, and the receiving touchdown as well. So you see this game, you're like, oh my gosh, this guy's available on every single waiver wire ever. Are we going to be able to get a top 24 wide receiver going forward? Are we going to have someone that has a very high ceiling? No. With Matt Collins, I understand, fabulous stat. I mean, the man had over 50% of the receiving yards here in Las Vegas this week. But let's break this down. Let's just think about this rationally. Matt Collins is a 29-year-old wide receiver. Is it that it just took this long to break out, this long to be an impact player, and going forward, all of a sudden, he's a new guy? No, he's the same exact player he's been for years, and he hasn't been an exciting option then. There's no difference now. The only thing that happened is Hunter Renfrow missed the game with the concussion. When we get Renfrow back in, Matt Collins is not going to be worth a roster spot. And even if Hunter Renfrow were to miss the coming weeks, I'm still never going to tell someone to put him in their starting lineups, because I think if we just project how targets are going to be broken down in this offense, you're going to get Devontae Adams with double-digit targets every week. I think Darren Waller most weeks is going to have a better stat line than 3 receptions and 22 receiving yards as well. So I know the hottest waiver wire pickup is going to be Matt Collins. But to be honest, I would prefer any other option on this list over him, including our next guy, Russell Gage, someone that also benefited to an extreme measure due to injuries in his offense. You had no Mike Evans. You had no Chris Godwin. You had no Julio Jones. So, of course, this is a situation that's an extreme for Russell Gage. But the man went out there and he did exactly what you wanted to see. He had 13 targets. He had 12 receptions. He had 87 receiving yards and the receiving touchdown. Now, the difference between a Russell Gage and a Matt Collins for me is Russell Gage was perceived to be a talented player coming into the season. We've seen Russell Gage have success in Atlanta. Tom Brady saw Russell Gage have success in Atlanta, so he sat there and went, you know what? Yeah, since I can run everything I want with this organization, why don't we go give Russell Gage $30 million this offseason? So he had the contract. He had the expectations coming into the year. You still have Julio Jones banged up. Julio Jones, I have no idea when he's coming back. I mean, even if Julio Jones were to come back, what's the real role you're expecting in this offense? We have Chris Godwin still banged up with the hamstring injury. These are going to be different than the concussion that we have from Hunter Renfrow, where I expect Renfrow to be back this week, where I think that maybe Russell Gage in what could be a shootout matchup with Patrick Mahomes this week, where yes, we're going to have Mike Evans, but if we don't have Godwin, if we don't have Julio Jones, Gage is someone that you could actually go through and play. I think he's a much better wide receiver than someone like Matt Collins in general. And now we're going to throw a tight end on this list, very similar to Tyler Boyd. I feel like we shouldn't even be able to put him on here. He's only rostered in about 50% of Yahoo leagues. I have no idea what leagues he's not rostered in. David Njoku. Now with David Njoku, yeah, he started slow this season. 100%, I'm going to be willing to admit that. But what are we talking about? Why would you drop him? Did you see the contract Cleveland gave him this offseason? On top of it, we see on Thursday night, he goes through 10 targets, 9 receptions, 89 receiving yards, and the receiving touchdown. Coming out of Miami, David Njoku had the athletic profile. He had the size where I thought this would potentially be a top 3 tight end in the NFL. I thought David Njoku was going to completely take over. Of course, it hasn't happened, but he is still incredibly young. Like, let's go through and let's do a little thought experiment here where let's look at David Njoku, who, I mean, right now, yes, he's been in the NFL forever. It seems like we've been talking about David Njoku for God knows how long. Let's look up David Njoku's age and let's look up Terry McLaurin's age. And we just did this. And David Njoku drafted in 2017 compared to Terry McLaurin drafted in 2019. David Njoku is younger. I think it makes sense to assume that maybe a tight end of this caliber with this raw athletic profile took a little bit of time to develop as a blocker and a receiver. I'm very excited about the upside we have with David Njoku. I think that he's probably a must-start tight end every single week now. And think about the ceiling that we'll have when Deshaun Watson comes in later on this season. But now let's go to the part of the video where we're going to be talking about players you can just go through and drop off your roster. First guy, Sky Moore, of course. Shallow redraft 4-bats here. We're dropping Sky Moore in Dynasty. You still like the long-term upside, but he botches the game for Kansas City. I mean, it was very ugly. He just drops a punt, lets Indianapolis have it. Then he leaves a punt, lets it roll to the 1-yard line. He has not been seeing playing time as of yet. This game, he had 8 total offensive snaps. He ran 4 routes. He's playing behind Justin Watson, McCole Hardman, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Marquez Valdes-Scantling. This is a continued trend, and I wanted to hold on to Sky Moore until about week 3, week 4 to see if he was going to begin playing more snaps. But in reality, with what he just did in special teams, I do not think that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to be more willing to give him opportunities going forward. So I think we have to drop Sky Moore. And if all of a sudden he starts to play maybe 50% of the snaps in Kansas City, then we change our minds. But now our next wide receiver going to be Corey Davis. Love Corey Davis in that same draft class as David Njoku in 2017. I mean, a wide receiver that had 2 very strong weeks to start the season. I get why people would be excited about Corey Davis here. I completely understand it. He has 70 snaps compared to Garrett Wilson at 48, 50 routes run compared to Garrett Wilson at 37. But if we are looking through this, when would you ever feel confident to start Corey Davis? He's playing in a very bad offense. Garrett Wilson is emerging as the wide receiver 1. Garrett Wilson continuing to dominate despite playing like almost half the snaps as Elijah Moore. I don't know why they are not getting Garrett Wilson more involved here. I think Garrett Wilson only takes more and more snaps from Corey Davis as the season goes on. It's a bad offense in general. I don't think we could start Corey Davis. Even if you were to have a Garrett Wilson injury, I'm not starting Corey Davis, so I don't see why he's on my roster. And now, our last player is actually a group of guys. Any pass catcher for the Chicago Bears. This includes Darnell Mooney. This includes Cole Kmet. I don't know if I've ever seen this before. I mean, we probably have, and I just don't remember. But Justin Fields is not averaging 100 passing yards a game through 3 games so far this year. Cooper Kupp most likely is averaging more receiving yards per game than Justin Fields is averaging passing yards per game. This is a situation where I never see a receiver here being valuable. Like, even if Darnell Mooney pops off this week, say he has 4 receptions for 80 yards and a receiving touchdown, would you start him in week 5? Hell no. So why are we rostering him in the first place? I would easily prefer these guys like Tyler Boyd. Like, Darnell Mooney's rostered in 70% of leagues, where Tyler Boyd's only rostered in 50%. So I think we go ahead. I think we make that swap. But of course, thank you so much for being a part of the vlog. If you enjoyed the video, go down there, drop that like, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscribe button if you want to come out to our live streams. We are still streaming every single day until the end of the season. And if you want to go take advantage of this player prop on Underdog Fantasy, it is only available for people who use a promo code FLOCK on Underdog with their first deposit, and they'll also match that deposit dollar for dollar, 200. So it's a free to check out. Take advantage of that free money. That's all I got for you. I truly appreciate you hanging out with us this video. If you have any questions, leave them down there in the comment section below. I'm going to try to answer at least 200 of those. Thank you again. Hope you have a great day, and I hope I get to see you in the live stream tonight.